The Ontario government has released its best guess plan for reopening schools in September. Doug Ford notes that when it comes to keeping our kids safe, I won't take any unnecessary risks. Well, it looks like the original recommendation by Toronto's leading experts at Sick Kids Hospital was thrown a political curveball when the updated guidance for school reopening doesn't appear to be based on any science or evidence-based decision-making. The suggested implementations will have lasting psychological effects, especially to the youngest and most vulnerable pupils, not to mention it looks like they're entirely unnecessary. That is, if you look at the data. The guideline published by Sick Kids is riddled with concerning verbiage, such as evidence specific to children and youth on non-medical masks is lacking. There is a lack of evidence that wearing a non-medical mask prevents SARS-CoV-2 transmission in children and in youth. There are limited data on the effectiveness on non-medical masks used for source control, but there remains a theoretical benefit, especially for older children and youth. Studies focusing on SARS-CoV-2 transmission in the school setting are limited. There is limited evidence on which to base a pre-specified class size. We can see the reoccurring theme here: limited, lacking, and theoretical. It's almost as if they all went, well, there's limited data and evidence, but there's a theoretical probability. So let's implement these psychologically damaging protocols and hope for the best, because health and safety first. So what does the data say? Check out this screenshot from Ontario's Public Health Epidemiological Stats. Children are at a 0% risk of death from the Wuhan flu. There have been 0 deaths reported in the province of Ontario in the age groups of 0 to 30. So follow me here for a second. If we contrast this with data from the Ministry of Transportation, wow, children are actually exponentially more likely to die being transported to and from school than they are from the virus. Are parents shouting with fear over this, or is the threat of death from transportation merely an accepted part of living? The fearful pattern that children are these asymptomatic infection breeders and will inevitably bring home their virus-riddled bodies to kill grandma doesn't appear to be based in any science. Actually, it looks like the exact opposite is true. When we look at the facts and we stop buying into the fear, there are absolutely no instances of children transmitting the Wuhan flu to a secondary source. This comes from a group of doctors who run a free, open-access medical resource for pediatrics called Don't Forget the Bubbles, and in combination with the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health, they assessed 78 global studies, and they found that there has not been a single case of a child under 10 transmitting the Wuhan flu, even through the contact tracing conducted by the World Health Organization. So why then is the Ontario government pushing for children to mask up? Not only is it well documented that masks terrify children, and quote, by putting masks on, we take away information that makes it especially difficult for children to recognize others and read emotional signals, which is unsettling and disconcerting. But again, it's riddled through this report, and evidence abounds elsewhere that non-medical masks are a best guess solution and actually increase one's risk of infection. Masking the general public, and especially children, brings up concerns of increased touching of the face in mask, not being removed properly or with proper hand hygiene, not being laundered frequently, etc., etc., etc. Non-medical masks are infection breeders in and of themselves. The micron filtering capacity of these fabrics are not tested or regulated, but hey, that cardboard helmet seems like a good idea because it's better than nothing, right, Government of Ontario? After all, hearing people compare tested and regulated seatbelts to non-tested and unregulated homemade cloth masks is hilariously ironic. Snuck into the Sick Kids report, they also publish that current distancing recommendations in Canada is 2 meters or 6 feet apart. However, it is recognized that a 1 meter, or approximately 3 feet of separation, also provides protection. Well, now that we know that the 2 meters is also just a best guess probability, if we're alleviating unnecessary risk and prioritizing health and safety, then it's important to note that children's brains and bodies literally develop based on close contact and interaction with their care providers and peers, unmasked. Prolonged physical distance is basically a form of social isolation and is well documented to create depression, contribute to poor cardiovascular function, it's damaging to the immune system, and get this, it lowers cognitive function. So are parents really being urged to send their children back to school under the guise of learning while the government implements rules and guidelines that hinders their cognitive development? Oh yes, once again, hypocrisy is the new normal. So if Ford really cares about the health and safety of Ontario's children and doesn't want to take unnecessary risks, it seems he should focus more on how risky implementing these protocols will be on the mental health of Ontario's children and less concerned about the 0% physical risk the Wuhan flu poses to children. Why are we still talking about this when the data clearly shows children are neither at risk nor are they secondary infection spreaders? Tell me what you think about the back to school guidelines in the comments below. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini, a rebel with a cause. If you're increasingly concerned about the mask mandate and how broad this policy seems to be reaching, including in cities and towns all over the country that have not been affected by the Wuhan flu, you should know that you may be exempt from this mandate. Check out maskexemption.ca to order your exemption card and, if you can, chip in to help offset the cost to run these cards past our legal team. Again, that's maskexemption.ca.